The richest man in the country, Mr. Victor Keitel, trusted no one. Not with his company, not with his fortune, and definitely not with his only daughter. Which is how Adrian Blake ended up standing in the marble foyer of the Keitel mansion at 7 a.m., wearing a black suit and an expression that said, "I do not smile for a living." At the top of the staircase stood Charlotte Keitel. She was holding a croissant and staring at him like he was an exotic animal her father had imparted. "Are you armed?" Charlotte asked casually. Adrian blinked. "Yes." She took a bite of her croissant. "Good, because I bite." From his study, Mr. Keitel's voice boomed. "Charlotte, stop harassing the staff." "I'm not staff," Adrian said evenly. "I'm her bodyguard." Charlotte smirked. "That's what they all say before they carry my shopping bags." "I don't need a bodyguard," Charlotte said as she slid into the back seat of her sleek silver car. Adrian got into the driver's seat. "Your father disagrees." "My father thinks almond milk is dangerous. He also thinks you're in danger." She leaned forward. "Are you going to follow me everywhere?" "Yes." "Bathroom?" "I'll stand outside." "Date?" "Yes." She gasped dramatically. "You're going to ruin my social life." Adrian adjusted the mirror. "From what I've read in your security file, I may be improving it." Her jaw dropped. "You read my file?" "I read all mission-related materials." "I am not a mission." He met her eyes in the mirror. "That's where we disagree." She sank back into her seat. "You're annoyingly calm." "I get that a lot." 3 weeks later, Charlotte attempted to escape him. She climbed over the back garden wall in designer heels. Adrian was already waiting on the other side. "Planning a marathon?" he asked. She yelped. "Are you psychic?" "No, you post cryptic things on social media." She crossed her arms. "You're impossible. You're predictable." She narrowed her eyes. "I could fire you." He stepped closer, close enough that she forgot her next sarcastic remark. "You could try," he said softly. "But I was hired to protect you, even from yourself." There was a beat. Charlotte's heartbeat did something highly unprofessional. At the annual Keitel Foundation Gala, Charlotte wore a midnight blue gown that made half the guests forget their own names. Adrian, in a tailored tuxedo, looked unfairly good. "You clean up well," she muttered. "It's called hygiene." She elbowed him. Midway through the evening, a clumsy waiter tripped near the staircase. A tray of champagne glasses hurtled toward Charlotte. Adrian reacted instantly, pulling her against him and turning his back to shield her. Glass shattered. Silence fell. Charlotte blinked up at him, pressed against his chest. "You just threw yourself in front of flying glass," she whispered. "It was within a 5-foot threat radius." "That's not romantic at all." "I wasn't aiming for romantic." She swallowed. "Maybe you should." A week later, during a thunderstorm, the power went out at the mansion. Charlotte hated thunder. Adrian found her sitting on the floor of the hallway, wrapped in a blanket, trying to look dignified. "I am not scared," she said. Thunder boomed. She scooted closer to him. He sat beside her. "You're shaking." "It's dramatic atmosphere." Another boom. She grabbed his arm. There was a long silence. "Adrian," she said quietly. "Yes?" "Are you ever not calm?" He thought for a moment. "When you climb walls in heels." She smiled. "And," he added, voice lower now, "when you look at me like you are right now." Her breath caught. "Like what?" "Like I'm not just your bodyguard." The thunder softened into rain. "You're not," she said. He studied her carefully. "Charlotte?" "My father will lose his mind." "Yes." "He'll fire you." "Probably." She tilted her head. "Would it be worth it?" Adrian, professional, disciplined, unshakable Adrian, hesitated. Then he leaned closer. "For you?" he said softly. "Yes." The study door slammed open. Mr. Victor Keitel stared at them across his desk. "You are dating my bodyguard?" he thundered. Charlotte lifted her chin. "Yes." Adrian stood tall. "Sir, I assure you my professionalism remains intact." Mr. Keitel looked between them. "You threw yourself in front of glass for her," he muttered. "Yes, sir." "You refused a bonus last month." "Yes, sir." "You haven't taken a single day off." "Yes, sir." Mr. Keitel narrowed his eyes at his daughter. "Is he competent?" Charlotte smiled sweetly. Unfortunately, extremely. There was a long, heavy pause. Then, Mr. Keitel sighed dramatically. Fine. They both blinked. Fine? Charlotte repeated. I hired him to protect you, her father grumbled. If he marries you, he'll never stop. Charlotte choked. Marry? Adrian, for once, looked stunned. Mr. Keitel pointed a finger. But if you break her heart, Blake, I will make your life very uncomfortable. Adrian slipped his hand in Charlotte's. With respect, sir, he said calmly, that would be impossible. Charlotte squeezed his hand. See, annoyingly calm. He leaned down slightly and whispered, only on the outside. Mr. Victor Keitel was not a man who adjusted easily, especially not to the sight of his daughter sitting far too close to her former employee during breakfast. He lowered his newspaper slowly. Blake? Yes, sir? You are off duty. Adrian glanced at Charlotte, who was buttering toast with suspicious innocence. I am aware, sir. Then why, Mr. Keitel continued, are you still scanning the windows? Adrian paused. Habit? Charlotte grinned. See? Romantic. Even though Adrian was technically no longer assigned to her, he kept showing up. At her art exhibit, at her charity meetings, at her yoga class. Charlotte came out of the studio one afternoon, Matt under her arm. Are you guarding the potted plant? She asked. I was passing by. You drove me here. Yes. And waited an hour? Yes. She folded her arms. Adrian? Yes. You're not on payroll anymore. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Correct. So why are you here? His expression softened just slightly. Because you make questionable decisions. She gasped. Name one. You tried to adopt a raccoon. It had emotional depth. It had rabies. Charlotte insisted on a normal date. No surveillance, no earpiece, no tactical positioning, she ordered. They went to a small rooftop restaurant downtown. Adrian lasted 12 minutes. That man by the railing has been checking his phone repeatedly, he muttered. He's texting. The couple near the exit are whispering. They're flirting. The waiter is doing his job. She leaned forward across the table. Adrian, she said gently, tonight you're not my bodyguard. He looked at her carefully. Then what am I? She smiled. My extremely overdressed date. He finally relaxed, just a little. Then a loud crash sounded from the kitchen. Adrian was on his feet instantly. Charlotte grabbed his hand. It's a restaurant, she laughed. Things fall. He looked down at her hand holding his. For once, he didn't let go quickly. Still within 5-foot threat radius, he murmured. She squeezed his fingers. You're hopeless. And yet, he said softly, you're smiling. One evening, Mr. Keitel called Adrian into his study alone. Charlotte tried to eavesdrop. She fell off a chair. Inside the study, the billionaire folded his hands. You love her. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. You understand what that means? Yes, sir. It means she is stubborn. A pause. Yes, sir. It means she will challenge you. Yes, sir. She will probably try to climb something again. Adrian allowed himself the faintest smile. I'll be there. Mr. Keitel studied him long and hard. Why? He asked finally. You could have a quieter life. Adrian answered without hesitation. Because when she's safe, I can breathe. There was a long silence. Mr. Keitel nodded once. Good answer. One afternoon, Charlotte decided to prank him. She sent him a dramatic text. Help, I've been taken. Adrian arrived at the location in 4 minutes flat. 4. He burst into the empty warehouse and found Charlotte sitting on a crate holding a sign that read, Relax. He did not look amused. She burst into laughter. You should have seen your face. He walked toward her slowly. Charlotte Keitel. Yes? Never do that again. She blinked. It was a joke. His voice dropped, serious now. You don't joke about losing you. The humor faded from her expression. "Oh." He stepped closer. "You are the only thing in this world I cannot afford to lose." Her heart flipped. "That was unfairly romantic," she whispered. "I wasn't aiming for romantic." "You never are." He gently pulled her off the crate and into his arms. "Next time," he said near her ear, "plan a safer prank." She smiled against his chest. "You ran here." "Yes." "You were worried." "Yes." She looked up at him. "I like that. It happened in the most unguarded moment possible." They were in the mansion garden at dusk. Charlotte was rambling about redesigning the fountain. "And maybe swans, or maybe not swans. Swans are aggressive. What do you think?" Adrian wasn't listening. He was watching the way the light hit her hair. "Marry me." She stopped mid-sentence. "What?" He blinked, realizing what he just said. That was premature. "You just proposed between fountain and swan logistics?" "Yes." She stared at him. "You didn't even kneel." "I can kneel." He immediately did. Charlotte burst into laughter. "This is the least strategic proposal in history." He looked up at her, completely serious. "I don't need strategy." Her laughter softened. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "Because I've spent my life planning for every threat," he said. "But with you, I don't want to plan. I just want." Her eyes shimmered. "You're terrible at being spontaneous." "Yes." "But you're very good at loving me." "Yes." She stepped forward, taking his face in her hands. "Okay." He blinked. "Okay?" "Yes, Adrian Blake, I will marry you." From the mansion balcony, Mr. Keitel shouted, "I heard that." Charlotte groaned. "He installed outdoor microphones, didn't he?" "Likely," Adrian replied. Her father leaned over the railing. "Blake." "Yes, sir?" "If you drop her, I'm reinstating your contract permanently." Adrian smiled up at him. "With respect, sir." "Yes?" "I was never off duty." Charlotte laughed, wrapping her arms around him as the garden lights flickered on. For the first time, Adrian wasn't scanning the shadows. He wasn't calculating exits. He wasn't measuring threat radius. He was just holding her. And that, surprisingly, felt like the safest place in the world. His POV. "I used to measure life in threat assessments. Distance to exit, objects that could be used as weapons, people who blinked too little. Then I met Charlotte Keitel. And suddenly I was measuring things like how long she could stay mad at me, 12 minutes, how many desserts she could order just to taste, 3, and how fast my pulse changed when she smiled at me, immediate. The first day I saw her, she looked at me like I was a challenge. Most people look at me and see intimidating. She saw entertainment. "Are you always this serious?" she had asked, tilting her head. "Yes." "Do you ever laugh?" "No." She stepped closer. Too close. "Good," she said. "I like a project." That should have been my warning. Instead, it became my weakness. If I kept a personal file on Charlotte, it would read something like this. Subject, Charlotte Keitel. Risk level, extremely high. Reason, capable of destabilizing trained professional with eye contact. She has this habit of talking with her hands, which means she accidentally pokes me in the chest when she's making a point, which means I stop hearing the point entirely. Once, during a meeting at the Keitel Foundation, she leaned over to whisper, "My father thinks you're glaring at the donors. I am evaluating them. You're terrifying them. That is not my objective." She smiled slowly. "You're blushing." I do not blush. I was, apparently, blushing. I've handled riots, armed threats, corporate sabotage attempts against Mr. Keitel's company. Nothing prepared me for Charlotte being afraid of thunder. When I found her sitting in the dark hallway, wrapped in a blanket, trying to look dignified, something shifted. "Adrian," she said softly, "stay." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sarcastic. It was vulnerable. That was the moment I realized something dangerous. I didn't just want to protect her body. I wanted to protect that look in her eyes. And that is far more complicated. When Mr. Victor Keitel called me into his study after discovering our relationship, I expected termination. Instead, he stared at me like I was a long-term investment. "You understand," he said, "that loving her is a greater risk than guarding her." "Yes, sir." "Why take it?" "Because when she laughs, the world feels less hostile. Because when she argues with me, she looks alive. Because when she grabs my hand in public, I forget to scan rooftops." But I said, "Because she is worth the risk." He watched me carefully. "You would step in front of a bullet?" "Yes, sir." "You would step in front of her temper?" A pause. "Yes, sir." He almost smiled. When I received that text, "Help, I've been taken," my body reacted before my mind did. Heart rate elevated, breathing controlled, route calculated. I arrived in 4 minutes. 4. I have never moved that fast for a contract. When I saw her sitting there holding that ridiculous sign, relief hit me so hard it almost made me angry. "Never do that again," I told her. She blinked. "You were worried." I couldn't explain it properly. There are protocols for kidnappings. There are plans for extraction. There is no protocol for imagining a world without her in it. That thought alone was unacceptable. I did not plan to propose that day. There was no ring, no security sweep, no formal speech. She was talking about swans. Swans. And I was watching the sunset catch in her hair and thinking, if something happened tomorrow, I would regret not saying it. So I said it. "Marry me." Her face, shock, laughter, warmth, will remain permanently archived in my memory. When I knelt, I realized something important. Kneeling in front of a threat is dangerous. Kneeling in front of Charlotte felt like certainty. She tells everyone I'm soft now. I am not soft. I still wake up at the slightest sound. I still check the perimeter when we go out. I still position myself between her and the street automatically. But now, sometimes she catches me staring. "What?" she asks. "Nothing." "You're doing the face." "What face?" "The one where you look like you're about to calculate something." I pause. "I am." "What are you calculating?" I look at her, really look at her. The way she stands on her toes when she's excited. The way she pretends not to care when she absolutely does. The way she trusts me completely. "A future," I say quietly. She softens instantly. "That's very un-bodyguard of you." "Correction," I reply. "It is extremely bodyguard of me." She laughs. And every time she laughs, I think the same thing. I was hired to guard her life. I did not expect her to guard mine. Because before Charlotte Keitel, my world was controlled, structured, predictable. Now it is chaotic, bright, unreasonable. And I would step in front of every storm in existence, not because it is my job, but because loving her is the one risk I choose willingly.